this entire area that you see in the red boundary is the Chianti Classico zone. It's 70,000 hectares, but only 7,200 hectares are allowed to be called Chianti Classico, and only 10,000 are vineyards to begin with, which is pretty amazing. So it's only 10% can be called Chianti Classico. So what makes up that other, 90%? And that's what we're going to talk about today, because that leads into this ability to have such a high percentage of the vineyards being organic and biodynamic. It's over there. Okay. So just another thing about Chianti versus Chianti Classico, as you can see, the red is Chianti Classico, and the gray is Chianti. There's a big difference. In other seminars that we'll do early in 2021, we'll have kind of the historical context talking about that. But I just wanted everybody to kind of see some of the differences. One of the big things here is the max yield in Chianti Classico versus Chianti. And I'm going to call on Tommaso from Bibbiano real quick. Tommaso, if you could go on mute. So the max yield is 7.5 tons per hectare, but have you ever grown 7.5 tons per hectare? What is your usual average yield?
Actually,
I'm not sure we can hear you. Faye, can you hear Tommaso?
No, was it Tommaso? You were after
No.
Tommaso, weren't you? Let me just...
Then 65 quintals of grapes per hectare, which means something around 45 hectoliters per hectare, historically in the last 10 years in Chianti Classico.
Right, and so you're looking at much smaller yields than 7.5 tons per hectare. So what we're talking about today, and this is one of my favorite things in Chianti Classico, is this idea of promiscuous agriculture. And what does that mean? So this is the historical context. This is obviously a beautiful picture here in Tuscany, and you're looking at a vineyard. In this, you see vines right here, and then you see olive trees, then you see woods, and then you see more vines. And what makes Chianti Classico, I think, so unique in the world of wine, specifically as a historic and a large denomination, is that it's not a monoculture. And we're going to talk about the historical context of that today, in its importance in the idea of organic and biodynamic viticulture. Many of us know, specifically those who work in restaurants and just love eating and drinking, olive oil is an extremely important component of the Tuscan agricultural scene. And within Chianti Classico, it plays also a very, very important role. Again, adding to the biodiversity. And as we all know, when you add to biodiversity, you add more animal species into the environment, which helps decrease the reliance on systemic chemicals. And with this, you have living and integrated systems. This picture on the left comes from Caparsa. This is thousands of bees. And as we all know, in agriculture, bees are extremely important. And hopefully Italy doesn't have the murder hornets like we're starting to get in the United States, which is kind of scary. But this ability to have this unique biodiversity, again, is the key to what makes Chianti Classico special in terms of viticultural reach. So just a little math problem. So you've got about 14.2% of the land of the 70,000 hectares being vineyards, a little less of 15% olive groves, and 65% woods. And that is our biodiversity. These woods are extremely important. Lots of flora, fauna, different animals. During certain years, that can be extremely difficult with the deers and the cingale that want to eat all the grapes. And I think the producers can talk about that. I know in 2017, it wasn't necessarily the drought that was hurting vines so much, it was the animals that were thirsty that were hurting them so much. And I think this is an extremely important part. And I think Luigi and Maria Sole of Castellini of Castello Verrazzano are going to talk about this historic fixture, what the multiculture is. So here you've got cows, you've got produce, you've got, again, this is another promiscuous farm. So in between the rows on this right-hand side, you have olive trees, then vines. And a long time ago, you'd have wheat in between the two. But this is extremely important. And Maria Sole and Luigi, if you could talk about kind of that historical context of what it means to have this integrated farming system and how important that is to your estate for the thousands of years that you guys have been producing wine.
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Maria Sole. He's my dad, Luigi. And sorry for we're in Florence, as you can see, because my grandma was 95. She's at the winery, so she's locked in, locked down in the castle, so no one can join her. So that's why we're here. And yes, regarding this story. So the story of Verrazzano and once you enter the winery, once you enter the place, you see the water, the great amount of water we have, and you can see that it's something interesting. So we have been independent for water supply. So that's how, of course, it's obvious. Since we drink the water, we eat the fruits coming from the ground, we decided to become organic for that reason, because you don't want to put chemicals in what you drink, what you eat. So, and all the varieties which are present in our winery, Verrazzano, we do beekeeping. We have wild boars in the area. We have 54 wild boars. Even the name Verrazzano, the area of the verro, the wild boar. And so the presence of different species in one winery, that's important.
La promiscuità permette di avere delle capacità di reagire più forti. Io quando ero a Verrazzano da giovane c'era Silvanino che mangiava la salsiccia e raccattava un Pesa. Lui era più forte di me, lui non si ammalava mai perché era promiscuo, perché era...
So my dad is saying that being promiscuous makes you stronger. He's making an example of Silvanino, who was a son of a farmer living in the winery. He was very small, he was very strong because he was eating sausage. We were going on the floor, so by mistake, when the food falls on the floor, he was eating everything. He would say even stones, and he never got sick. He was super healthy. So this is the idea. If you're promiscuous like Silvanino, you're stronger. That's it. I was laughing.
Thank you, Maria Sole. That's amazing. The 5-second rule keeps you healthy.
Bye. Sì. Allora, 5 secondi.
So I know I buzzed through a bunch of those slides, but I wanted to just kind of lay the foundation so these producers can also talk more, because that's who you want to hear from. So Tommaso, I'm going to pose this question to you. And we've talked about, and I've kind of laid the groundwork of the biodiversity in the region, but how does the biodiversity of Chianti Classico aid in the ability for you as farmers to farm organically and or biodynamically?
Certainly, the fact that the appellation is lying upon a territory made of woods for its 65%, and the percentage of vineyards in the whole territory is pretty small in comparison of a big surface of land that we have at our disposal. That means that we have a balance, a natural balance given by the woods as a sort of lung, which makes the vineyard breathe naturally. And also the fact that we have a texture of different crops or different cultivations, like we have olive trees and small places, orchards and crop fields and vineyards and some other activities, like we have also to mention the giaggiolo, which is the Iris germanica, pretty important in Chianti, since there was use for producing flavors for aesthetic products, not for making the wine more perfumed. So that actually is a natural balance of the vineyard activity to any kind of vineyard activity. So not just the organic farming, but also the conventional farming. There's a natural balance of what we do. So making the Chianti Classico a real wilderness. And this is pretty good because none of the most important Italian appellations have such a balance because they just work on a limited and smaller territory.
Thank you very, very much. And again, everybody out there, if you have any questions at any time, we want to hear from you. You've got literally 6 of the horse's mouths, kind of leaders in the denomination with regards to organic farming. So let us know your thoughts, because we want to hear from you, as do the producers. I'm going to go back to the slides right now to kind of give you a little more context of what we're talking about from a historical standpoint. So we've talked about the biodiversity, the differences, and I think many of you know, Italy and Europe was set up in the feudal system, and kind of why is integrated farming so important and just part of who they are as a people, specifically in Tuscany. So obviously during the Middle Ages and up to the 19th century until 1806, when Napoleon kind of basically, and that kind of filtered down through the church, ended feudalism, you had just these large landowners, and you had to have integrated crops to feed the people, but then also sell. Then we move into this really interesting period of Italian history with the mezzadria. These are the sharecroppers. In some of the estates here, all the estates were worked by a lot of the mezzadria, and I imagine many of the producers can talk about that a bit more historically accurate than I can. But basically, it's sharecropping. The families farmed the land for various estates, and then got a percentage of the crops. And then post-World War II, you saw many of the mezzadria leave, and that's kind of where this changeover happened from the 60s to today, where many of these large estates were broken up because to farm the land without enough people, it was just impossible. But still keeping lots of olive trees, keeping lots of orchards, produce, and other things besides vines, keeping that historical context of what's going on in that region, again, gets us where we are today, where almost 40% of the appellation is in conversion and or already in organic farming principles. And this is, here we are. And this, we didn't talk about this yesterday as a group, but which of the producers, I'd like someone to explain the biodistretto del Chianti. What is this idea of what a biodistretto is? Because here in the United States, we don't necessarily have kind of this overall governmental approach to kind of organics, not just within farming, but within kind of everyday life. Tommaso or Paolo, would anybody like to speak to biodistretto and kind of what that meaning is?
Biodistretto, it's a land where everybody try to find an object, a way. I think the organic, it means also quality. I remind everybody, because in the vineyards, in the organic vineyards, live many thousand different ecosystems together connected, made of insects, bacteria, microorganisms, fungus. And after there is a work of the people, the soil, the exposition, the level of the sea. That is influence, everything is influenced from the complexity. More the system is complex, more the fruit is healthy. And when the fruit is healthy, produce a healthy product like the wine. The wine in our culture is food, like bread, like meat, like cheese, like vegetables. And especially the connection wine and food is very important, because if you drink wine with food, I think it's possible to live longer. My grandfather died 94 years old, and he drank it near 2 liters daily. So the intention of a portion of a land like Chianti Classico and Biodistretto is to found these questions, to develop the quality, because I think the quality means only when the food is healthy.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo. Paolo, that leads us into another question for you. What are the largest differences you've seen? And your estate has been farming organically for a long, long time, but in talking to colleagues and working your land for such a long time, what are the biggest differences between conventional farming and organic farming in terms of that qualitative nature to the fruit and ergo the wine?
The conventional vineyards has a lower complexity, Because when you use herbicides, for example, you don't only use a poison, but killing the grass, you kill the habitat of the local fungus, local bacteria, local insects. So you work like in a simplification. And so the bad insects, bad bacteria found freedom, attack, destroy, and so the winery must use more chemicals. If you use more chemicals, the grapes don't ferment spontaneously, so you have used ferments. If you use electric ferments, you have to use nutrients for the electric ferments, and so you produce a standard product, standard food. The organic vineyards are more alive and lower energy, because the manure has a lower energy than, for example, chemical fertilizing, or when you use synthetic products who work like in the blood, no, in the circle, that produce simplifications. I love this concept of the complexity, and the conventional vineyards surely are produce lower. Okay, the fruit is beautiful, like the Mela Melinda, no? Beautiful shape, beautiful color, but as a substance, I think is not really healthy, like the grapes in the conventional vineyards. I hope you understand, because my English is not really nice.
Oh, Paolo, your English is great, and I think a lot of us understand exactly what you're talking about. We have a great question here. Does the drive towards biodynamic or organic viticulture within Chianti Classico, is there a movement for a no-till addition into this process, not moving the earth as much, or does anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm really curious, because I know there's different thought process with regard to how much you need to move the earth, or if you don't move it at all, in terms of tilling. And Faye or Christine, maybe you can help me with the actual translation for what tilling the soil is in Italian.
Who have an answer?
Massimo?
Yes, I stay here.
Perfect.
You ask me?
Yes, Massimo, do you have any thoughts on the idea of not tilling the soil in terms of moving the appellation in this idea of organic and biodynamic viticulture?
Quando si fa girare la terra.
Quando si fa girare la terra?
Massimo,
Sì,
capito? Fare il, come si dice, lavorare il terreno, aprirlo.
Io lo lavoro solamente dopo la raccolta delle uve, subito dopo lavoro la vigna, poi non viene lavorato mai, solo calzato ogni tanto, la vigna è soda, nerbita.
Okay, so Massimo likes to work with tailing the soil only after the harvest, and after that he just try to work the less as possible, just moving the ground close to the feet of the vines, and let the grassing take the prevalence of the work.
I think this extends the conversation for Massimo. For the question that we have for you is, in some of your, in viticulture and specifically organic and biodynamic, there's a lot of different inputs that people are trying to add. Hold on, baby, hold on for a second, please. No. About, could you speak about the additions that you add to the vineyard in terms of the cow and pig blood, and how that kind of, instead of using systemic chemicals, is effective in the treatments that you do?
Massimo, la domanda è, puoi spiegare come, quali sono i tipi di additivi e di prodotti che utilizzi per trattare la vite, e quali sono le differenze rispetto ai trattamenti convenzionali che ti aspetti, i risultati che potresti avere?
Allora, i prodotti che si usa per trattare la vigna sono i classici rame, zolfo e qualche concime foliare quando c'è delle carenze o degli induttori di resistenza. Per la cura della tignola viene usato il Bacillus thuringiensis. Traduci poi continui.
Allora, for the additions is basically we stick to the use of the sulfur and copper with borderless paste, and the use of foliar fertilizing. While for other kind of diseases like tignola, there is the use of other kind of tignola the moth there is a use of some other living being on a biological attack to that with a bacteria or a bacillus. Vai Massimo.
Sì, dicevo, in agricoltura convenzionale sarebbe molto più semplice perché basta usare un pesticida per gli insetti, poi anche in agricoltura convenzionale si usa il rame e lo zolfo più quello che tu sai che si usa, tipo il bitene o altri prodotti chimici, insomma, quelli, cioè nell'agricoltura biologica non bisogna sbagliare né i tempi, né il momento, né il periodo per il trattamento, perché se la situazione sfugge di mano, insomma, si rischia di perdere il raccolto o di fare danno. Traduci.
So going back to Jeff's question, the conventional farming is much easier, and it would be less risky in organic farming using all these kind of techniques. You must be very precise and accurate, otherwise the minimum mismatch with the optimum can take you in the wrong directions. So this is a choice of braveness in trying to do something that is even more difficult.
Thank you, Massimo. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Claudia, Massimo had talked about, and a lot of us know that in biodynamic and organic viticulture, kind of one of the main treatments that people use on the vines and the soil is copper sulfate. And there's some discussion with regards to how many times people should use copper sulfate because you're adding a heavy metal to the soil. And Claudia, you and I had talked specifically about copper sulfate use, and I'd like to get some of your ideas on it and kind of the impact or the non-impact that you see, are maybe some of us are misguided in understanding the actual impact of copper sulfate and how many times you may have to use it. Because a lot of argument I hear from people who don't want to switch from conventionals, like, well, you use more CO2 or you have to use more copper sulfate specifically in rainy years. And I'd like to get your thought on that and how you would counter an argument and defend the practices that you do.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Now I'm using actually only 30% of copper of what is allowed, let's say, in organic agriculture. But anyways, the numbers are that you can use actually 4 kilos of copper metal per year. And so it cannot exceed that amount in the of 28 kilograms in a period of 7 years, which means that if you have a year that is different, that is difficult in terms of humidity and diseases which need to be prevented, you may as well use more and then use less in the next years to come in order to have like an overall amount of 28 kilos over the year, over, let's say, the amount of 7 years that is allowed. Now, coming back to ourselves, we're using copper a little bit to, let's say, heal the vineyard when we have disease coming in. And I think as a metal, it is a healing metal. Obviously, you don't want to overdo and to, let's say, put too much heavy metals into the ground. So it needs to go where it needs to go. We have in the bio district where I live, we have one focus, let's say, one agronomo who is giving indications to many of us. And that means that we all use less, and we use copper in different quantities according to the growth of the plant. So wherever the plant is in that moment, we decide how much copper we need to apply.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There is a quick question. This will go right to you, Claudia, as well. So are any of the family, and this could go for anybody, but we specifically know that Claudia practices biodynamics on her estate too. So the question is, do any of the families utilize the practice of biodynamic calendar in any of the ideas put out by Steiner and friends?
Your question is if anybody else is doing it around here in the area?
No. I mean, we know you do, and if you'd like to speak to a bit of biodynamics, and I'm curious if any of the other estates have adopted any biodynamic principles as well.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that others have done it too. I mean, there are larger estates here which practice biodynamics for a long time, and practically the biodynamic farms are inspired by the biodiversity of natural ecosystems. So we're trying to combine plants with animals and create what we call an organism. So that means if you have animals on the site who produce actually the manure that you can re-put onto the fields, and then enliven the earth in order that there are more insects, more, let's say, earthworms, more, let's say, vibrant life of the earth, then you also produce a better and a more complex product. Now, would you like to know about the different preparations we use? We actually we have different things. We generate our own vine plants in order to substitute the ones which are missing. So we're trying to grow plants which are actually adapting to the environment and which are from the same plot, so they are more resistant to diseases and more sensitized. We also use biodynamic preparations, which are actually, let me just see here, I made a little translation, which are done from yarrow, from chamomile, stinging nettle, oak bark, dandelion, and valerian. And those little preparations, which have a certain process to be prepared, are used in the compost. So we are doing a compost from our natural, let's say, rests of plants and also from manure. And these are inoculated in there, and that helps to bring out, let's say, a fertilization. Obviously, I don't have animals on my farm except for 2 dogs and a cat, but I try to retrieve, obviously, the manure from places where people do biodynamic agriculture.
All right. Well, excellent.
So that
Thank
is
you.
one thing.
Oh.
Okay, just
Sorry.
to say, we also spray horn silica and horn manure in little quantities, dynamized in water on the earth, and we therefore try to enhance maturation of the fruit with the horn silica and to increase plant immunity. Also with, let's say, teas of horsetail tea. And we enhance the life of the soil and the relationship between soil and plants with this cow manure. Yeah, after we cut the green manure that we seed in October.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And when we Claudia, when we get to your wine, we can talk more. And if anybody has any specific questions about biodynamic farming practices, Claudia will be the last wine that we try today. I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint real quick, because we talked about the biodistretto. Again, what this isn't actually a total, like, think of a bio district. Imagine if Brooklyn, where I live, if all of Brooklyn decided everything that we're going to do is going to be in the process of moving towards organic, not just viticulture or growing things, but it would be like my kids' school would serve organic food. And it's not just beyond this idea of like, this is a marketing thing, this is a way of life. And I think that's one thing in Tuscany, in talking with all these farmers, it's not just that it's good for the plants, and many of them talked about this before, but it's good for them, their families, and their workers not to have systemic chemicals sprayed, because obviously we all know many of them cause cancer. Here are many of the certifiers and the certification labels that you've probably seen on various labels. Each of the producers are going to talk about the certification that they went through and why. But the most important ones in Italy are ICA, BioAgriCert, Q Certificazione, Bio CCBP, and Associo Suolo e Salute. This will be available to y'all, so we'll send out this PowerPoint so everyone can see it, and you can kind of get some more information on each of these certifying bodies. But I definitely want to get to the tasting and have each producer talk about that. In our tasting today, we're going to be tasting the Annata, so obviously the introductory of Chianti Classico, the calling card, the Reserva, and then 2 Gran Selezione. This is just a refresher for those. And we'll be doing a Gran Selezione tasting in 2021. If you're interested, let Faye know, and we'll keep you on the list. This is our tasting order if you want to get your glasses in order if you haven't already done it. But we're going to start with the Mori Concetta Morino Chianti Classico 2018. And let's get tasting. So first off is the Mori Concetta Massimo Beccatelli. Thank you very much. This is a estate in San Casciano in Val di Pesa. So if you have in your mind's eye the map of Chianti Classico, we're in the far northwest. This is a smaller estate of 4 hectares, certified and organic. And one thing that we want to make really, really clear is that the certification date that I put on all these things is the technical date. So they're certified in 2015, but they've been farming like this, obviously, much earlier to get the certification. And many of the states have been farming organic or without systemic chemicals much longer than that, and then decided to become certified. So again, if you have any questions like that, please feel free to ask. But Massimo, if you could tell us, please, more about your estate, and specifically with the 4 hectares and farming organically. One, why do you farm organically when it is much more difficult? And 2, why the specific certification body that you've used?
Massimo, la domanda è come mai hai scelto di fare l'agricoltura biologica, ovviamente dopo aver detto 2 parole sull'azienda, e poi come mai hai scelto esattamente un percorso di certificazione piuttosto che un altro?
Allora, l'azienda è praticamente la mia azienda, è nata dopo la morte di mia madre, dove insomma abbiamo rifatto tutte le vigne nuove in quell'occasione, perché l'azienda era molto, come dire, malmessa. Il biologico è una scelta mia personale, anche se il regime di conversione l'avevamo già iniziato con mia madre. E non ho capito il resto della domanda, puoi ripetere per favore?
E invece, perché avete scelto di fare il biologico, e poi come mai hai scelto una certificazione piuttosto che un'altra?
Sì, allora il biologico è per una convinzione mia personale, perché sono un ecologista anche se non fanatico, e la scelta del mio certificatore è stata fatta insieme all'agronomo e sul consiglio dell'agronomo, perché io ero quasi a digiuno di tutto e lui mi ha consigliato. Basta.
Ok, so the farm is a family-run farm that was actually created after that Massimo's mother who always had a passion for agriculture, passed away a few years ago. And together with his father, they decided to dedicate the land of the house, is the place where they live, to farming. And actually, since when Massimo's mother was arrived, they were already beginning the conversion to organic farming, because there is a strong feeling in the family, and Massimo, first of all, in regards of the respect and the love for the environment. So it's a kind of a mindset that has always been part of the Beccatelli family, and this is what they wanted to pursue since the beginning. In regards of the choice of the certification, very honestly, there was a choice given by the acquaintances that with the agronomist had to recommend, because they were not very familiar of how to get the paperwork done. But it was easy because the practices and the way of working was always driven by an organic state of mind.
Oh, well, thank you, Massimo. And if you could just speak about this specific wine. So the 2018, you have planted Sangiovese, Colorino, Canaiolo, and Pugnatello. Does this wine specifically have all those in? And I don't know if everybody sees this as well, but the total states 4 hectares, 3 hectares are olive oil or olive groves, and only 1 hectare is vineyard. So this is extremely small production. But if Massimo wouldn't mind speaking about his 2018 Annata as a whole, to give us kind of a guiding light on this wine.
Massimo, ci sono tutti i varietali che tu coltivi in questo vino nell'annata 2018, e se puoi dire alcune parole a riguardo sia dell'annata in generale che della tua annata 2018.
Sì, allora nel vino che degusteremo ci sono tutti i cloni citati. L'annata è stata ottima, senza particolari problemi, se non nel finale, quando le piogge di settembre avevano iniziato a creare qualche marciume nell'uva, che però abbiamo bloccato con l'aiuto di prodotti biologici che ovviamente poi non si ritrovano nel vino, nella fattispecie il poliversum.
La fattispecie?
Il poliversum, il prodotto usato. E la zeolite, che praticamente la zeolite è una, non so se lo sai, una pietra macinata che si attacca sull'oliva e assorbe l'umidità, quindi impedisce al fungo della botrite di svilupparsi.
Okay, so to answer the first question, all the varietals that are listed in the fact sheet of the winery are involved into the production of this wine. So you can feel the presence of very indigenous varietals that are not so that are part of this blend. And speaking about the vintage was developing regularly for all year long, with some surprise at the end of the season after the beginning of September, where some rain started coming in the territory of San Casciano very strong, and this was creating some beginning of rot that fortunately and with good capabilities was also cured with very careful and smart organic tools, like in particular Massimo wants to mention the use of zeolite, that is kind of mineral in a stone consistency that has been grinded and sprayed in order to absorb the effect of the rot on the vines. So this was able to keep the varietals healthy and very and easier to work in the cellar in the moment of fermentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Massimo. So the second wine, this is Tenuta Bibbiano, Tommaso. If you wouldn't mind speaking on why you chose your specific certification. And then you also, we had talked yesterday talking about like the idea that in Chianti Classico, we haven't had the actual scientific knowledge of looking at all the inputs, what is happening. But again, that this biodiversity and this farming organically is more a traditional basis and is still the future of the region.
Jeff, thank you very much. Let me start from the last question. We were talking yesterday, preparing today presentation, apart of the complexity of the Chianti Classico appellation, its area, which is pretty big, is divided into two provinces, Florence and Siena, and politically divided into 8 communes. So the complexity is already in its fabric. The complexity is already in its history. Therefore, even if that complexity actually gives us the opportunity to better balance between the winemaking, the farming, and the respect of the ambient on the side, also gives us a certain complexity in the social relationship, even in the political administration of the appellation. But that is also a good point for saying that we have a lot of history in our approach of winemaking, which is made of a big respect of the territory, for the territory. Therefore, even if it's something more romantic sometimes, or just as in the case of Bibbiano, a sort of ethic decision to move from conventional farming to organic farming, that is because is our history and our respect to the tradition and the desire to maintain our places as we receive them from our parents, from the people before us. So it's to give the territory a proper identitarian continuity. This is actually the main input, at least in Bibbiano, but in many, many other producers of the area. The second question you mentioned about the certification entity. Generally speaking, in this case, because the process from moving from conventional to organic farming is not so easy in terms of relationship with the institutions, in moving from your habit of farming to a new habit of farming, you need a consultant for doing this. And generally, the certification entity is the one which has been suggested by your consultants. In this case, Bibbiano is not making any exception. We just decided to go with the one which was indicated by our consultant at that time.
Thank you very much. And would you like to speak? So, we just tried a wine, they're both 2018. You're in Castellina. If you could speak a little bit about the difference of what happened in 2018 in your area with regards to this beautiful wine.
Thank you. Castellina in Chianti is one of the communes in the appellation whose surface is completely inside the DOCG of Chianti Classico. And because of a position, which is a southwest position in the appellation, is characterized by 2 main areas inside the commune. We have a northeast side, which is from the village of Castellina, looking to the valleys of the rivers Pesa and Merse, which is very forestal. So the wines, the wineries growing there, vineyards there, are generally speaking releasing wines which are very elegant very subtle, but the characteristic is also to be very shy. They need time to mature and to express better. The southwest side of the area, a big slope, very, very hilly, a sort of waves, different waves of hills going southwest, going lower, then more sunny, then more hot. The clay characterizes the soil instead of the rocks. So in that case, we have more consistency, even more strength. But generally speaking, the commune releases very elegant and fine wines.
Thank you very much, Tommaso. Our next wine, we move up valley a little bit. We head to the village in the area of Montefiorale and Greve. This is Castello Verrazzano. So Maria Sole and Luigi Capellini, if you could talk about your estate and its conversion to organic viticulture, the Q certificazione, and to this wine in particular. Again, we have this is a 2017, so this is one vintage earlier. And what's cool, everybody will get to see the difference between that. And I guess to tack on one more question, Maria Sole and Luigi, specifically 2017 was a very hot and warm vintage. Could you talk about, do you feel that organic viticulture helps the vines adapt to climate change?
Sì, allora.
Big question.
Okay, scusami.
Vai. I'll be translating, okay? Vai.
Dunque, intanto scusate il mio inglese, ma c'è
Sorry for his English.
Il 2017 abbiamo scelto perché, come tu dici, è stata un'annata difficile e per noi è molto interessante come un'uva organica ha potuto dare queste caratteristiche di qualità.
So as you mentioned, 2017 has been a difficult, like challenging vintage. So that's why we decided we picked this vintage to see how organic farm, like I say, farming organic, we can produce a quality wine.
La caratteristica di questa annata è stata un'annata che ci ha avuto un ciclo vegetativo relativamente corto e viene fuori questa speziatura nel nostro Sangiovese, ma ha comunque una sorta di struttura ugualmente, quindi noi siamo contenti.
Okay, we're happy with this vintage, even if the vegetative cycle, it was very short, so you can taste the spiciness.
No, comunque c'è una sua complessità.
Still has its complexity and is in equilibrium according to us. So we're happy with this wine, even if it was a challenging vintage. Regarding the other questions.
Io non sono sicuro che non è già stato detto, perché il mio inglese è povero, ma è interessante in un'annata così anche capire la struttura del vigneto, cioè i vigneti biologici, oltre i trattamenti che te conduci, hanno proprio una struttura che tende alla sostenibilità, filari corti con una pendenza.
Un attimo. Allora, something that is not sure, it was already mentioned, it's that even in this vintage, you can understand that organic farming have like the vineyards, the vines have like different structures, something that maybe was not already mentioned.
Cioè, i corti e non hanno molta pendenza.
Something interesting is that the rows are shorter and they're not very steep.
C'è un recupero dei terrazzamenti. E Mori. Vabbè. C'è un recupero dei terrazzamenti, quindi non so se questo è stato detto. Nel Chianti c'è questa tendenza a recuperare questo disegno del vigneto antico con i filari che si accorciano, massimo non arrivano a superare i 60-70 metri, le pendenze tornano ad essere modeste, ok? E si ricostruiscono i muri a secco.
Okay, something that like a trend that is coming back, it's that the terrace vineyards, I'm not sure, Jeffrey, come si dice, terrazzamenti, And so the structure of the vineyard, so this shorter rows, 60, 70 meters max. And of course, the steepness, it's a little bit less. So it's more like going to be flatter kind of thing. So shorter vineyards, that's the point.
Un'altra cosa che forse è giusto dire anche che c'è una tradizione, ma anche c'è una modernità. Per essere biologici c'è bisogno anche di buone tecnologie, perché devi permettere di dare prodotti più blandi, ma devi intervenire con velocità.
Perfetto.
E quindi deve avere trattamenti che devono essere veloci.
So being organic, something like necessity is to have, how do you say, technologies. Okay, so of course it's tradition, and but at the same time modernity. So we need to be rapid every time we tackle a problem. We need to be fast. That's important, and we also need technologies which are very helpful.
Okay. Per esempio, hai le centraline meteorologiche o hai anche dei sistemi che ti fanno la micro, l'agricoltura di precisione, individuando nel vigneto le zone da trattare all'interno di un vigneto.
Yes, with these technologies, are able to tackle and to see where in the specific vineyard the problem is. So, yeah.
Quindi c'è queste due componenti.
Okay.
Il passato, la tradizione.
So there's these two components being organic, the tradition, so the past, but at the same time the modernity, all the technologies which are very fundamental.
Ok, so certificazioni.
Scusami.
No worries. We have a question from the audience, my dear friend Yannick. You know, as many of you know, us in New York, we have the Verrazzano Bridge, and the question is, what is the relation to the fine gentleman on the label, Mr. Verrazzano, and if you could talk about that, because Yannick said, I see that you have a photo of Giovanni da Verrazzano on your label. What is the relation? And I know that he's from Florence.
Yes. Yes, I know this answer, so I'm going to answer by myself. So Giovanni da Verrazzano, the man on the label, you can have a small label or like, we have a big one here. He was born a Verrazzano in the castle. So the castle was owned by his family, the Verrazzano family, and he was born there. He was the one who discovered the New York Bay in 1524. He was founded by the French king, Francois Premier. So thanks to the French people, we have to say. And he was a humanist. So he was a man of knowledge. He was a scholar. He was not just like a, explorator. So he was very respectful to the other cultures. That was very interesting. And yes, it was the Verrazzano Bridge was built in 1963. And if I don't know if anyone is from New York and is there right now, and I don't even know if you can move, but if you cross the bridge, you see. Anyway, okay, cool, thanks. And yeah. So if you cross the bridge, I don't know if it's pretty expensive, but I don't know if you notice that if you go there, there are 3 stones from the Verrazzano Tower, which is where we're from, the winery. And if you ever come, you're all welcome to come to our winery, to Castello di Verrazzano. You're gonna see 3 stones coming from the river. So in 1963, there was this cool exchange. So that's why the man on the label. So that's kind of back in the days, some history. Yeah, it was eaten by the cannibals, in 1545, some, I don't know, cool insights.
And I think some of the again, why Chianti Classico is so amazing when you're there, and hopefully everybody gets to go there again when we can travel, is so many of these states have that history. They may be with different families today, but I think one of the really interesting things about the estates even today is that for 1,000 years, the territory of that estate has been the same. And they've even found Etruscan ruins on the estate. So knowing that vines have been planted there for 2,800 years is pretty amazing. We're now moving to Radda. So we're going a little further down the way if you haven't tried. And we're also, this is very important to note, we are moving into a Reserva. This is Caparsa. This is Paolo Cianfroni, 2016. So Paolo, thank you again very, very, very much. If you could speak to 2016 as a vintage, this is one of my favorite vintages in a long time, but also speak to kind of organic farming in Radda in particular, kind of the challenges, the positives, the pluses and minuses.
Okay.
Paolo, there you are.
Okay, sorry. The organic, I think, is a new deal for the next generations. It's an alternative in some point of view of the science. And when I was young, I was an activist of the World Wildlife Fund. And at 22 years old, I moved this passion for the nature in the vineyards and the wine. Slowly, slowly, because the organic is in a walk. Caparsino is made with 100% Sangiovese. We are in Radda and Chianti, Caparsa, in the middle of Radda and Chianti, in the northeast position. And surely, in the last vintage, Radda and Chianti, all the land exprime and very fresh and flowered wines. Fresh because we are in, this position is on 500 meters of sea level, 400 meters of sea level, and the global warming did not influence strongly the vintage. 2016 surely is the middle between 15, a warm vintage, and 17, another warm vintage. 16 it was more harmonic, and this wine is very arid, like all my wines. The tannins are a little bit aggressive, but I think it's very depth. Great with the beautiful beef, barbecue, steak, cheese, ham, because clean your mouth. So this wine is wine to drink with food. It's not possible to drink out of food. And another question, it can age a long, long time. Mediumly, all my wine age more than 15 years, 20 years or more, and I'm sure 16 extremely can age a long, long time. If you have another question, I answer you.
Yes. So Paolo, there's a really great question here. With global warming kind of affecting all things in agriculture, yes, are people starting to plant more on north-facing vineyards or also looking for higher altitude vineyards?
Yes. Allora, 40 years ago in Caparsa, when I produced wine of 11 alcohol, we was very happy. Now, the summer and the winter are warmer and hot, so the maturation of Sangiovese, it's stronger than in the past. In some point of view, 40 years ago, the best wines born in the south position, like in Montalcino for Sangiovese. Now, the best vineyards are in the position protected from the warm and hot days. And because when it's very hot and warm, the grapes produce more sugar, the acidity go down and the pH grown. And so sometimes the wine cannot age a long time. In Radda and Chianti, generally, this not happen for the moment. And so the global warming are changing a lot, really.
What changes are you doing within the vineyard to combat climate change?
Allora, non ho capito perfettamente la domanda. Me la puoi ripetere? Scusami.
No, non c'è un problema. How would I say that differently? What are you changing, if anything, in your vineyard practices, yes, to fight climate change?
I think the global warming must to change the kind of vineyards. 20 years ago, the knowledge suggests to plant a lot of vines in a hectare, in the same hectare, 10,000 vines in the 1 hectare. I think now it's too much, because when we plant more quantities, this is my opinion, more vines, more number of vines, the vines are lower, and so the grapes get warm and hot from the soil and the sun. I think now we have to grow the level of the vines. For this question, I have an experiment from my father, where he planted the vineyards in a horizontal way. It's not possible to produce in that kind of way, but I observe the vineyards high about 2 meters, 1 meter and 80 centimeters, answer better against the warm days. So we have to change quickly the mentality of the vineyards. And so my vineyards has a different kind of soil and alignment and height.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Paolo. Faye is going to issue another poll real quick before we go on to our last 2 wines. This is something I'm really curious to think about, because a lot of producers, you know, we talk to a lot of people, and, you know, they say, I farm organically, but I'm not certified. I don't want to do the paperwork. And I'm just very curious, does having a certification actually matter to you and to your customers? So right now we're at 63 thorough. This is kind of like watching the US election. I won't make my normal jokes, so. So at 54-46, so very, very, very close. So there was a question about elevation, and I'm curious for the producers out there. Right now, the maximum elevation you can plant and still be Chianti Classico is 700 meters. Are there discussions to expand that? So like in Montalcino, that was at 600 meters, and now as of the 2021 vintage, you can plant above anything planted above 600 meters can be actually now called Brunello Montalcino. Is anybody doing that are you looking at as a consortium in Chianti Classico changing that that rule, or has that been discussed yet? This could be for, I know Tommaso's on the board. I know Andrea, you're hiding, but you're on the board. Alessandro, you're on the board. I can see you. I know your face isn't there, but has the board discussed that? Has the consortium discussed changing altitude rules? No, not yet. So this is a great comment. I think it matters more to customers as they like to go by labels and certifications more than word of mouth. And for any journalists, SOMs, anybody out there, so we again talk to a lot of people and growers and say, you know, I farm organically. Unless you've been to that vineyard, you can't really tell. So how do you take it on word? How do you, I'll throw this out there and you can take yourself on mute. I'm really curious, and hopefully the producers will hear this too. What do you do? Do you just take it on faith? Because I have gone to a vineyard that I thought was organically grown and it was not. And, you know, certification does force someone to put their money where their mouth is. And we have someone here that has 4 hectares of land that they've certified organic. So there's sometimes the excuse, well, I'm too small. The paperwork, I think, and the producers, I think you can nod. The paperwork, would you say it's a pain in the ass? Yeah, Tommaso's smiling.
Can I talk from a retail perspective, Jeff?
Oh, of course, yes. Julia, please.
I came on camera to say this.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hi, everyone. I work in retail in Washington, D.C. And for a lot of customers, maybe 20% ask about it. I actually like to tell the story of people doing practices that I believe in. And if they have it, I add it as a bonus that we have a sheet where we can refer to it. But because we're a small boutique store, we actually don't put in a lot of products that don't have greatly made wine, whether or not they're certified or not. But if they are, they have all that. If someone asks, then we have a list ready to give them, because we do have customers asking. But I think it's almost like an individual basis. More customers are coming into it, but not as much as I thought would be. before the pandemic. I think now people are just asking, would you drink it? Do you like it? What can I eat it with? So it's a catch-22, but you know, like you said, you can't guarantee because you haven't been there. But I will say a lot of people are concerned with it because they just want to know for their personal thing. But we keep a running like clipboard of who is organic, who is biodynamic, so we can actually say it, and all of us know any new wine comes that is biodynamic or organic, we add it to the list, and it just helps us to talk to people to make them understand what also does that mean, because I think a lot of times when people think organic, there's no clue, because in the US the term organic can run amok, and when you're talking for other countries they don't understand. I mean, it's already hard enough to differentiate between DOC and DOCG. You know, so that's the thing too. So people, you know, we try to always just really put wines that we want to sell, no matter from, you know, where they are. But I will say probably 10 to 15% of the customers I deal with are interest certifications.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julia. Any other comments on this question? I know it's a hot topic, and I think it's important to discuss. And I think having the producers here, hearing your voice is extremely important as well. We have a lot of producers. If you're not reading the comments, please do. There are a lot of comments in here. You know, I think, you know, like this one from Bruno says, I'd rather not have the certification as I can open the conversation and customers or friends will appreciate it. Bruno, does that mean you'd rather not the wine be certified, it just not be on the label? I'm just curious about that, if you could either.
But in my situation, I think that a lot of times the struggle just to put the seal behind the bottle and in front of the bottle, I think it's so much of a struggle that I love to open the conversation like family owned, like they have the parents, they have the grandpas, they have the grandsons, everyone is working in the land. That resonates more to the customer instead of just putting the seal in. I think when we have that, we close the conversation. And I like that, like just letting you know, I was over there, he was over here in New York, and we're talking about the wine, and I guarantee you this is this and this and this, practicing this and this and this. And people appreciate that instead of just cutting the corners by having the seal. But that's me, but I understand mainly retail, a lot of times they need the certification.
Thank you so much. And I think for me, like when I worked on the floor or worked in retail, the certification was kind of the last thing. You know, I now work with, you know, trying to get wines to the United States. And I will tell everybody, when you try to deal with TTB and get that cola that has the certification on it, it is a pain in the rear end. It's extremely difficult because it depends on who your label person is, but it can be quite the challenge. And, you know, sometimes going on faith is good and sometimes it's not. But I know for me, I like when people are when they have the documentation. It doesn't have to be on the label, but if they say, you know, Jeff, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, that's just, you know, an added level of mad respect, because I know it's not easy. It's extremely hard. It's expensive to do that. So it's just that it's literally the cherry on the cake, because the wines are great and there's plenty of family-owned wineries that don't have certification, that do farm organically. But I do always respect when people just add that. It's kind of like in fine dining, that little added bit more of hospitality just goes a little bit longer. So thank you very, very much. So we're going to move on to our next wine. Claudia, this is your estate. I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint real quick, but we're now moving into Gran Selezione territory. So this is the newest, newest title for Chianti Classico. We're going to Panzano. A lot of people know Panzano and Greve, kind of the Conca d'Oro, the heart near the middle of Chianti Classico. So Claudia, if you could talk a bit about your estate. You certified organic immediately out of the gate after you purchased, but now you're working in biodynamics. So if you could kind of fill us in on your history and story in this wine in general. Thank you so much. Is Claudia, are you here? Oh, you're on mute still.
Okay.
There we go.
Now here we go. Okay. As I said, I bought the estate in the year 2000, and when I discovered it, I was very curious how I would farm it because I didn't have a clue about farming, though I had always longed to become a farmer when I was a little girl. So there was some kind of dream come true, but now what? So there was this farmer family who tended the place and had tended it for, say, I don't know, the past 20, 30 years, always using their copper and sulfate and with their little back sort of boxes and spraying and so forth. And the old farmer said to me, look, when a bird is born, it doesn't fly immediately, so chill out and you'll go out and learn it, you know? So that's what I did, and I knew it was going to be a long process. Everything, in any case, 20 years have gone by. So another friend along the line said, well, this is just 1.2 hectares, and one should be able to farm this and do everything that needs to be done. So be an agronomist, be an enologist, be your own, you know, promoter of the wine and everything. And what I did is I took the challenge. So not having, let's say, the means or the economic support to take on big professionals, I leaned to my friends and to some big wine producers, and here and there got some good advice, did a lot of mistakes, and got to the point of producing actually a very good wine. Which was first the Chianti Classico, then the Reserve, and then the Gran Selezione. Now, I have to say that I'm only doing one wine a year, so it's like we do about 20 hectoliters instead of 75 from our hectare 0.2. Which means we have that one wine, and that's, you know, the quality in which it is certified by the consortium of the Chianti Classico. That's what it's going to be, and that's what we're coming out with. And the past 2 years, that was Gran Selezione, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, looking at the comments, I think everyone's very proud of you as well. The wine showing very well. So could you just talk a little bit about your idea? So you knew you wanted to go organic immediately, but what pulled you? What was the impetus to start working with biodynamic principles?
Okay. Now the organic was actually there was no other way for me. I mean, it was clear that being very near to nature and always being very bound to living in the nature and even in the open nature, being a camper and all of that, I just, you know, there was nothing else than doing it organically, which I didn't know how to do. So after 3 months I bought the estate, I signed up for this organic certification, thinking that these people would tell me what I needed to do, which was obviously not the case. And still isn't, because it's all about, you know, administrational stuff and papers and so forth. They don't have a clue about what's going on in the vineyard. But anyways, so I started to understand more and more. And in 2007, my dear husband, who had studied in Switzerland, he's Italian, but he studied there at in a place that was actually built by Rudolf Steiner, who was 100 years ago a great philosopher and he did a lot for education, for medicine, and also for agriculture. And he had actually held a lecture over the course of, I think, 6 or 7 days to about 200 big landowners who had approached him, urging him to tell them what they needed to do with their lands, because already 100 years ago, they could perceive that these lands were kind of declining, you know, because there was mechanical, let's say, more machines were coming in, more chemistry in the vineyards and all of that. So the biodiversity was suffering, and all of these things were already happening in the 1920s. So this personality, Rudolf Steiner, then became, let's say, my guidance, because he wrote at the time, they took the lectures and they put them together in a book, and it's quite a well-known book about agriculture, about biodynamic agriculture. So I started, to sort of experiment around and start to do the first dinamizzazioni. So
dynamization.
Dynamizations, and which means I took a barrel, wooden barrel, and I would fill it with water from the river that was coming by. So very vivid water, not the water that you take from your tap, which may be chlorid or something. But water that had been exposed to the sunlight and to the, vivid sort of nature floating and everything. So, then we would dynamize these sort of homeopathic amounts of manure, of cow manure, and then spray it out onto the grounds and, do all these things that were in the book. And we actually had a very good response from nature. And still today, I can see how, all of them are, like the vines and the olive groves, are favoring really, because I don't put out too much of fertilization. So even these dynamic preparations are working very well, even though they are in small amounts, because they work together with also with a sort of with a calendar that we attend to, and that is something that I wanted to show you, by the way. So we have these calendars that I use over the years, and I just kind of, have these all these little booklets. So you have one for each year, very colorful, and what they do is they basically give you a broadcast of the climate of that year. So month by month, you get sort of a little overview on how the planets are moving through the zodiac, and how this is causing, according to certain days, is causing more humidity or more warmth or cold air coming in and so forth. And so that makes you already sort of prepare for the month, because you already know, somebody has already put this down. So what does it mean? Not only broadcast sort of day by day or for the next 5 days, it's like somebody has looked at the calendar, how things are going to go, and actually is giving you a forecast about the season, So then actually what we do is, you can see different colors in here. And these colors are according to, let's say, certain elements that, which is basically water, fire, earth, and light. And they, let me see, and they, and according to, let's say, these constellations, you may do certain operations in the vineyard or not. In an earthy day, you work the grounds, for instance, or in a day of water, you work on picking the leaves and defoliating, or you harvest on a day of fruit. And what does it do? It actually, to many people, it doesn't make a difference, but basically you're enhancing the quality of the, let's say, of the earthy energy, of the eterical energy of the earth in that moment for that plant, because they're very perceptive on that. And you're using these enhancers in a certain way because you're exposed to them, So, so since 2007, I'm doing this, and I'm not certified biodynamic because of the reasons that you were stating. It's a very complicated process to be always, you know, on your papers and to do everything. So sometimes I don't have the time to do something, so I do it the other day or whatever. I give myself this freedom, but still in the whole, I'm trying to, you know, be with nature in this process throughout the year. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia. We do have one question specifically about the wine that's not in the tech sheet. For the barrels, it says Tonneau and Barrique. What percentage new do you use on the Gran Selezione?
On new wood, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, right. Well, I actually buy more or less every year or every 2 years. But now in the let's say this year, I'm actually now I'm increasing the production. Let's put it this way. So this year I'm buying 2 barriques, which are ready now to be taken. Last year I took one big tonneau of 500 liters. The 2 barriques are 225 liters. So it's like according to what I need for the wine to be put in, you know, to be put into the wood, I take on new wood every year.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
So that means part of the wine is a new wood and some other part is maybe an older wood, but you know, I interchange throughout the years, so they all get, you know, hopefully the best they can. So.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next wine, our final wine for today. It's another Gran Selezione. We're going back to San Casciano, Val di Pesa in the northwest. This is Carus Vini. I believe Pamela Bernini will be speaking with us. This is also, if you have it poured in your glass, we have 2015 vintage.
Yeah.
Pamela, are you here?
Hi, I'm here. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Thank you so much. If you could just, again, give us an overview of the estate, talk about, and then specifically, the one question that I'm really interested in, because in your tech sheet, you talk about it, systemic acquired resistance. You know, talk about the estate, talk about the wine, then let's talk about SAR briefly, and then we will come back. Thank you.
Hi to everybody, and thanks to be here. And Carus Vini, where is Carus Vini? As Jeffrey told before, Carus Vini is in San Casciano, that is in the north area of Chianti Classico. And in total, we have 13 hectares, mostly of Sangiovese. And why we convert to organic and why we use the systemic acquired resistance. We firmly believe that between the hand and the means, there is the same link that there is the seed and the tree. So in nature, being everything connected, we think that intensive cultivation generates in the long run an impoverishment of the territory and consequently of the product itself. For this reason, our first goal in Carus Vini is to reduce the impact on environment, following strong principles that respect the environment, vineyard, and man. So in the specific, we use systemic acquired resistance. What are? These are an innovative natural substance which applied in advance on crops reduce the incidence of different type of stress and at the same time decrease the amount of treatments. And we firmly believe that more resistance we have in the vine and more energy we have in the soil, in the ground. And these substances stimulate the plant's immune system, making it more resistant to disease. So systemic acquired resistance does not cure the disease, but helps the plant to defend itself naturally. I hope that you understand what.
No,
what
that was a fantastic
yeah.
explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And could you speak to, or if any other producers want to talk about 2015, but specifically to Carus Vini in 2015, because this was a very heralded vintage as well.
Yeah, so the vintage you are drinking now is 2015, and this is a Gran Selezione. We use 90% Sangiovese and a touch of Cabernet Sauvignon, and this part of Sangiovese grown in the upper vineyards at 350 meters above the sea level. And we use the best Sangiovese to produce this wine, and mostly age in tonneau, because we always age Sangiovese in tonneau, in the big barrels of 500 liters, and Cabernet we use to age in the French oak barrels to give more spicy and round and smooth to the wine.
Thank you. So, and Pamela, I think we have a question. When you were talking about with regards to SAR, what substances are you speaking of specifically?
No, I think that they are a natural manure, natural mineral salt that we add in the soil, and they stimulate the immune system of the plants.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now I know Massimo was keen to speak on another topic. Alessandro, if you want to tell Massimo, we have the time for him to speak.
Massimo, vai. Massimo. Microfono.
He's frozen.
Massimo's frozen.
Massimo's frozen. Well,
it's his way to say he's thrilled by this.
I just wanted to say, are there any other questions? I know we've gone a little bit over our 90-minute mark, but I really appreciate everybody hanging in there with us as we go back and forth and with any technological issues. But to the producers, I'd like to say thank you very much. I know all the hard work you do, not just during harvest, but every day, day in and day out, to different season. What y'all do in the vineyard is extremely important. You know, as a father of a little child, I'm, you know, the way you farm is extremely important to me, because I want my earth and her earth to be as healthy as possible. And I also believe that it does make the wines taste really delicious as well. And that's a very important factor as well. But at the end of the day, I think this is all good for all of us. If there are any other further questions, please just put it in the chat. If not, you can email Faye or I, and we'll get it to the producers. And to everybody out there, be safe, be kind to each other. Thank you all very much. To the Consorzio, thank you for putting this together. To have 70 plus people, there's Beatrice. Oh, she wants the wine now. To have 70 plus people listen and talk and exchange ideas. This is what wine is about. This is our community. I can't thank you all enough for just being here with us. So as they say in Texas, grazie mille. And we will see you soon. And tomorrow, if you're interested, on at Chianti Classico on Instagram Live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be taking over the Instagram and talking more about Chianti Classico if you're interested. So come on by and we'll have some fun and answer questions there about kind of the most recent vintage and talk about what I think is one of the greatest wines in the world. So again, thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon. Faye, if you have anything, Christine, if you have anything, please let us know.
Just thank you to Jeff for putting this together. We get really some great responses from everyone. So thank you very much for being with us. I know it's late for the producers. It's still time for you in the US, and thank you for staying with us. Thank you, Faye, also for putting it together, and have a great day. And hope to see you in January for the next masterclass, which Jeff said it's on the Gran Selezione. So there will be other producers with us, and of course Jeff he will guide us to the next topic. So we have another 2 in January and in February. And
yeah, reach out. We'd love to have you again to learn more about Gran Selezione. It's a category that I think we need to talk about more. I think you'll be very, very excited to see what's coming down in the new wines that there are to try. I also want to throw a shout out to Scott Woltz, who mailed you all the packages. He was our logistics guy here in the United States. So it's a big team of people to get these awesome little bottles of wine. And this came, Faye, could you tell us again what the company is that puts this together? This is out of France. So the wines went from Italy to France, the United States.
It's Vino Vea. It's a company who is based in Lyon, and they're working together with WSIT, and they just were creating also a virtual fair. And so they are sending all these small little bottles, and we start to use them, and I hope you like them. So it's something new, and especially in this very difficult times, it's an opportunity to taste wines, at least, even if it's a small quantity, but at least it's wine, it's real wine, it's good, and so I hope you enjoyed it. I have another small things to say. It's because Faye, she shared all the technical information with you, and also the information on the wine estates who have importers. There are still 2. They are looking for some importers in the United States, and this is Acquadiaccia and Mori Concetta. So just to let you know, but you find all the information also on the wine estates. You find it on the technical sheet. So you have their email addresses, you have their websites, and you can go in contact directly with the producers as well.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
we'll also put the recording on the G Drive as well tomorrow. So if anybody missed bits or wants to see it again, then you can find it there. We'll have the invitation for the next session up in the next week or so. So keep an eye out. If you signed up to know about future events, then you'll get that in the next few days.
And tell your friends, Chianti Classico's on the map. It's cool as hell. It's delicious. Don't forget it. And we've talked a lot about diversity and the beauty of the region. And hopefully today you've got an understanding that these farmers are working their tails off to work the land, be kind to the land, be kind to each other, and just make delicious wine. So, and the other thing is the value of Chianti Classico is through the roof. Buy, stock your cellar, drink a lot of it. You'll be happy. That's what I do. Look at me. So thank you all very, very much.